There we go. Hi, everyone. Nice to see all of you joining us today. There are still people popping in, but I think we can start from here. Simon, if you want to, you can be sharing now the presentation for today. So today we're going to talk about effective large-scale learning, and my name is Sofia, and I'm going to be the host for you today. And with me, I have my colleagues Simon and Lotta, and they are going to walk you through our corporate learning program today. And then also very nice that our client Katrin from JTI could join us. She's going to give also the JTI insights of the corporate learning program that they have been co-creating with us. So it's going to be a very, very interesting webinar today. Before we start, I'm going to go through some practicalities with you. So you can chat with us during the whole session today. Please use the chat for that. And in the blue box, you should change the chat settings to all panelists and attendees so that the discussion is transparent there. If you have any questions during the webinar, please put them in the Q&A. And if you want to ask specifically something to Simon and Lotta from Agile 42, you can add their names before your question, so I know that I can address that to them. Or if you want to ask Katrin something, you can just type her name or JTI or something, so we know the question goes to her. The questions will be walked through then in the end of the session today. The webinar is also recorded, and we are going to share the recordings on social media, on our blog, on our website, on our YouTube channel, and also with everyone attending today live. We're going to send you an email with the links, so stay tuned for that. And you are, of course, free to share the links then after the webinar with anyone who missed the live sessions today. That's it from my side. I'm going to hand over now to the coaches and to Katrin. I will see you after the presentation for the questions. Enjoy.
Thanks, Fia. So my name is Simon. I'm an Agile 42 coach. Have been with Agile 42 for about 6 years now. Yeah, a former developer, an artist, an entrepreneur. And yeah, I'm excited to have Katrin with us today, our dear client, and yeah, to collaboratively reflect on our experience of developing JTI's learning program in the past few months.
Yeah, my name is Lotta. I'm Agile coach since 5 years right now, and have been developing the corporate learning program together with my colleagues Simon and Katrin, and looking forward to share some experiences on the creational process with you today.
Good, and my name is Katrin Birrer. I'm working for JTI. Started there like a bit more than 9 years ago, always in HR or people and culture roles, how we call it here. And since this year, then a part of the transformation office, and therefore also mainly responsibility for the agile capability building for our company.
Yeah. When we turn to the point of agile capability building, that's maybe the first or like one of the biggest questions that we're facing in there is how to become agile as an entire organization or company. So when we're facing that question, the first thing that we normally do is we look for any kind of agile training, and we tend, like with a team, to start with any training. We look for a trainer. After receiving the training, we just look for a coach. And at the end of the day, if we're fortunate, after being in interaction with the trainer and the coach, we might have an understanding of Agile or a joint understanding of Agile. However, like we figured out that can be a little bit improved. We may look for someone who is even able to train us and to do the coaching. So we can use one team and one Agile trainer and coach, and we will have joint understanding of Agile. So when we're at that point, the next thing is let's scale it. And yeah, the next thing we're going to do is we include a second team who's able to get experiences while working Agile, and we're looking for a second Agile trainer and coach. But then we come back to the point, like, do we still have the same understanding? And what we do on that is we need to add some kind of alignment between the Agile trainers and coaches, so that we get joint understanding of Agile. There is at least one problem at that process, and that problem is that doesn't scale that good. And it's working when you're having like few groups of Agile coaches and few teams. But when we look into larger corporations and large amount of teams, it is difficult to get a joint understanding about like what Agile is or how Agile working should look like in the entire organization. And that was basically one of the challenges Katrin was facing when we got introduced to each other or when we met. And to get deeper into that, I'm happy to toss the ball to Katrin.
Good, thanks, Lothar. Maybe it's worth to give you a little bit of context who JTI is at all, also to understand the situation we are in. JTI stands for Japan Tobacco International, and I'm sure that already gives you a bit more hints who we are. We are the third biggest player in the tobacco industry, and I believe our brands such as Winston and Camel, L&D, BVS, they are most probably better known than our company brand. We distribute cigarettes in more than 130 countries and are a huge family of 44,000 people around the world with more than 110 nationalities. And as our name also reveals, we have a Japanese heritage. As many other companies, we are facing challenges. The world is changing faster and faster, so do our stakeholder needs. It's all about complexity, volatility, uncertainty, you know, the famous VUCA word, but it's also, if you compare producing and selling cigarettes is a very traditional business, but over the last years, we had many regulatory changes driven by a more health conscious and generally changing society. Consumers' needs are shifting to the so-called reduced risk products, better known as e-cigarette or vaping products. And these are all things which makes the life a bit more challenging as a FMCG company. But it's not only about these external factors. We also have many internal reasons why we want to transform as a company. We grew tremendously over the last years, organically, but also through acquisitions. And it's true, we are still very successful. We were successful, we are still very successful, but we also became heavy, bureaucratic, and sometimes very slow. So in a nutshell, we don't really need to change. We are not yet forced to change, but we want to transform. We want to stay on the top of the curve, leverage on the opportunities, and we want to get prepared and tackle all the challenges that are coming our way. We know the future is bright, but doing what we have done in the past will not be enough in the future. And that's why we started our transformation and journey to become agile as an organization. Agility was identified as one of the main drivers, not only one, but one of the most important drivers to address all these challenges and to make us ready for the future. So the main drivers there, or main motivators, were about customer centricity and value creation, which is also triggering for us a clear prioritization and resource allocation. It's definitely about speed and efficiency. We need to be faster in decision making and get rid of the heavy planning and bureaucracy we have. And last but not least, it's also about empowerment and employee engagement. Collaboration in connected teams and more ownership will motivate employees and give them a stronger purpose, especially also to work for a tobacco company. And that's what was our starting position. It's no secret that we started our transformation journey with the support of a consultant company. We delivered many presentations, started with basic training sessions and several agile pilot teams. What we just heard, tried to scale it from there. And on paper, the plan was clear and simple. Start doing it, learn by doing, scale it, and become agile across the organization. Soon we realized that it will take us actually much longer than we thought, and the overall change is much more complex. Agile is a huge change for everyone, and it's not just about the way of working, it's foremost mindset. Becoming Agile starts with a clear understanding and applying it, exploring and learning iteratively and incrementally. Following the traditional training approach didn't bring us the success we wanted. Learning and becoming Agile is a journey. So we were looking for a learning journey that follows also an Agile approach and will allow us to scale and reach a wide audience, mainly our people, of course. We wanted to start with something that is good enough to be tested and improve it based on the user's feedback. And that's exactly when we reached out to Agile 42. I think our collaboration started at the end of June this year. And our first cohort participated in the pilot learning journey in August, so right after the summer vacation.
Great, thank you, Katrin. That was wonderful and very useful to share the context in which our corporate learning program can be useful and beneficial for, especially for large corporates, large companies. The Agile 42 corporate learning program is something that we launched this year, but that we designed already during the past few years. I remember first talking about it 2 or 3 years ago. And the idea is that we can provide learning to a large audience, so thousands of people, and provide a coherent learning experience, which will help reach many people at once, right? And we can also customize this learning experience or the learning journeys to the specific company needs and address things that are context specific. Yeah, so for example, in the context of JTI, tobacco or fast-moving consumer goods would be one thing to address. And we can also not just provide self-learning opportunities, but also blend it with experiential learning or application level learning, where you don't just understand the basics in principle, or you understand, for example, the Agile values and principles, but you can also put those things in practice and try them in your specific context, in your individual context. Yeah, so this is, these are the benefits of the corporate learning program, and JTI has been one of our first clients to test our program, but in the meantime, we've engaged with several clients and several corporates, so large companies that had different specific needs. And so the first step in engaging with our corporate learning program would be to actually explore and understand the specific needs. Yeah, so what is the company needing in terms of change or in terms of learning, and how can we cater to these needs with our corporate learning program? And what do we need to consider when designing a learning experience for the employees, so the workforce? Next step would be to co-create the program, and the important term here is co-create, because so with Katrin and JTI, for example, during the past few months, we've really co-created and co-developed the program and tested very frequently, and had a pilot cohort give us lots and lots of feedback, you know, iteratively and incrementally, and this helped us improve the learning program for future cohorts. Yeah, so it's a co-creation program process, sorry, that is very valuable, because we will together own the success of the program, and not just have, well, a supplier relationship with our client, right? Where the client expects something and we deliver something according to specs. So it's also an iterative, incremental, or very agile way of developing such a learning journey or learning program. Yeah, so obviously, as I mentioned already, the next steps would be to pilot the program, to test it with a first cohort, and then collect lots of feedback, and then improve based on that feedback, and then scale it up at some point. And with JTI, we're now at a point where it has been tested with the first pilot cohort, and we've already improved some of the pieces that are part of the learning journey. And we'll show you a couple of examples what the learning journey looks like, or what elements are part of this. for JTI specifically. And now we're at a point where we want to scale the program and have more cohorts engage in this program to benefit from a shared understanding of, in this case, Agile values and principles and some core practices. Yeah, so this is the Agile 42 corporate learning program in a nutshell. And one thing that we'd like to share is something that helps us design those learning journeys. And this is the Bloom's taxonomy for adult learning, which helps us also design our training courses and has helped us design our training courses in the past 12, 13 years. So these are different levels of learning, right? And we can address some of those levels, definitely not all of those levels, with a learning program that is based on virtual online self-learning or video-based learning, right? And these are primarily the lower levels in this pyramid: remember and understand. So what we can do is we can provide, for example, case studies or run webinars or have participants do self-reading or engage in online self-learning to remember or understand some basic terms, or you know, have a shared vocabulary that that avoids confusion when they talk to their peers, and can help them then apply things in practice, which would be then the next step, where we can engage with participants in instructor-led workshops or in a workshop setting, in a training setting. And we can also have them perform assignments, and we can review those. However, it's important to understand that when we're talking about large scale and scalability in general, we really have to be aware of the contact time that is required, contact time with experts or agile coaches who will engage with participants and help them on their journey, right? So we have to find the right balance between the level of learning or the depth of learning and the contact time that is required to support this learning. Yeah, we can also do things like peer reflection. So when participants, for example, form groups and they share their experiences and reflect together on their experience or their success or failure of applying things in practice. And of course, we can also engage with people and coach them either in a group or individually, right? But this obviously requires more contact time and needs to be taken into consideration when we're looking at learning at scale, right? So thousands of people. There we're back at the problem that Lothar presented when introducing the topic. Right, so now for JTI specifically, taking all of these factors into account, and especially the scale of things, we're looking at 3 levels that we defined together with Katrin and her peers. And the first level is a foundational level, which aims at teaching 10,000 people within JTI and helping them understand and partially also apply some of the Agile values and principles and some core practices as well. Yeah? So for this, of course, we're relying much more on the lower levels of the Bloom's taxonomy that I just introduced. And there is a strong focus on self-reading and self-learning through videos, online self-learning. Yeah? So we can reach a very large audience. The next level on the Agile Champion program at JTI would be the practitioner level, where the focus is less on understanding in principle, but more on adopting practices and leveraging some Agile practices and roles. So exploring what it means to be, for example, a Scrum Master, a facilitator, a product owner, or being part of an Agile team and embracing agility in your daily work. Yeah, so this would be the next level. And here we're looking at not quite as many people within JTI specifically, but a lot less people. So those would be, in JTI terms, the Agile operations teams. Yeah? And then the next level would be more of a guide level, probably not relevant or interesting for every single person within JTI, but more for a bunch of people, let's say 50, where the idea is that these people would have gone through the other levels, level 1 and 2, and would have grown competence and confidence as well to be able to lead and inspire and guide people, and really embrace an agile mindset and influence culture. Yeah, that would be the next level. So we're very close to completing the level 1 journey for JTI currently. The next cohort, which will be senior leadership, interestingly, will go through the self-learning experience that we co-developed with JTI and Katrin specifically. And the next level, the practitioner level, is something that is in development right now. So we'll probably launch it in January next year, just for a little bit of context. And to help you understand a little bit how the level 1 journey looks like, that we specifically designed or co-developed with JTI and for JTI, so potentially for 10,000 people, this is what it looks like. So we have a phase of self-learning where people engage with content, mostly video content, but also some reading activity, and their understanding of Agile values, principles, and practices is validated through quizzes that are automated. So there is no contact time at all for this phase required. Then some people can also engage and participate in a classroom session, which is a workshop designed to help people apply things in practice, so in a practical manner. And so here we do simulations and facilitate games that deepen the understanding of how to apply things in practice. The next interesting phase is the application phase, where people are expected to perform an assignment, one of 7 predefined assignments that help them apply things in practice in their individual context. And they will then write an experience report and submit this to our training platform, so we can review it and check if people have really understood the principles and successfully applied them in practice in their individual context by, going through their reflection and their report. And then the final validation for participants to complete the Agile Champion Level 1 program or journey is the validation, where again we're testing and validating people's understanding from all the previous phases. So the self-learning material, the classroom session material, but also the application phase, by, for example, providing them with scenarios and then having them assess which of the given provided choices is the most appropriate, when considering the scenarios. So this is an example of a learning journey with these 4 phases that we now specifically designed together with JTI and for JTI. Just some impressions. So I guess this helps to make it a little bit more tangible and concrete. So here, for example, this is one part of many parts that are from the self-learning phase. Here is a Kanban in a nutshell video that explains the Kanban principles and some practices. Here is one assignment out of a set of 7 that we offer to participants for the application phase. In this particular case, people are expected to run something like a daily stand-up, to synchronize on a daily basis together with their team, and then reflect on their experience and try different formats of stand-ups, which is an Agile practice. And this is one scenario-based validation question where people are expected to assess their understanding and their application of Agile principles and values in practice. Yeah, just so you get an idea.
Just to jump on one of the questions that I've already seen in the panel, what works well for self-learning? Simon, if you could just jump back to the previous slide. What we have shown here is that there is a video that was provided, for example, in the self-learning, but we're also trying or evaluated the different formats. So, for example, the self-learning videos or like drawn videos where you see a presenter, or there are also some things like readings, for example, the Agile Manifesto, which is something where it is quite compact and concrete, and it's helpful for the participant just to read it as it is. And for example, then there might be an additional explanation on it. However, we are also testing, and this is one of the feedbacks that we received in review workshop that happened. We're testing to provide multiple formats, or to combine formats for people which have different interests in how they would like to receive the content.
Yeah, one of the strongest feedback so far was that overall video worked really well for the self-learning part, but in some cases it would have been very useful, or was very useful for participants to also have some sort of reflection exercise afterwards, to reflect on the meaning of the presented material and to try and translate it into their context, and or also have just a text that goes together with the video that they can print or just download as a PDF and keep for later for reference, or to again read through the material at a later point in time. Yeah, so that was one of the pieces of feedback that we got from the first pilot cohort, yeah, that many people shared. Thanks for the question. Thanks for answering already. So now we wanted to just give you, first of all, an impression of how co-creation could look like. This is a screenshot from a Miro board that we used to co-develop with Katrin and her peers learning journeys. And this includes some level 1 material, some level 2 material. You'll see lots of sticky notes, of course, and some material that we have written up to describe learning journeys from a user perspective. We used a persona called Jill here for level 1. And we also used story mapping quite a lot to explore the needs of those users and define their learning objectives, what they're supposed to learn and how. And yeah, we also use this board, or these artifacts and visualization to clarify the required effort to develop content, so video content, for example, or assignments and other things. Yeah, but I don't want to go into detail about the content here, just to give you an impression of how co-creation can look like visually. Yeah, and I wanted to now use the time to reflect a little bit together with Katrin and Lothar on our experience of the co-creation of level 1 and also a little bit level 2 probably. So how this co-creation was experienced by each one of us. And yeah, perhaps we can start with you, Katrin. What would you say was something that was interesting or valuable or a learning or surprising, anything like that, when collaborating with us?
Well, I guess there were several moments, and for me, this co-creation already started during our very initial calls, I would say, when we were still evaluating who would be the best provider for us. You gave us the impression that you really want to create something with us and create and find a solution which works best for us. So it was not about just selling the products you have or the developments you have done, but it was really about exchanging idea, listening, and keeping our specialties in mind. But the more crucial moment was for me when we had the first design workshop, and also that was still like just let's get started and see where this is leading to. So we still wanted to see if at the end of the workshop we want to work with you, just more as a test. And the workshop as such didn't bring us exactly the results we had imagined. Maybe on the contrary, it even confused us a bit first. But to be fair, I think that was also your intention back then. And in any case, we gave you the feedback right at the end of the workshop. The way you accepted it and what you made out of it was very much convincing. And I think this was for me also the elementary start somehow, that we could exchange openly our thoughts. We were open for feedback on both sides, and really creating something together. And for me, this is very much inspirational. So that's because sometimes it's you have an idea, sometimes it's us, and of course it's always again about our needs. And together we are developing things and steps and sharing ideas. And actually we have a quite active exchange also by email, by regular calls. So I think that's making the difference for me then.
Yeah, thanks, Katrin. I can second that, and I share that impression that the start of it all was probably on your side also confusing or even frustrating experience a little bit, because the expectations were different, right? So we were really diving into uncertainty and exploring the needs, and not really providing you with lots and lots of options and ideas and solutions, which was probably more your expectation, but just asking lots and lots of questions and facilitating your conversations and so on. So at the end of the design workshop, we didn't really have a plan that was then to be executed, but we had a better understanding of the context and the needs and the problems. And then we went into really shaping a solution and designing a proposal, and well, also collaborating with you and exchanging a lot with you to make sure we were on the right track, right? So we did spend lots of time initially to explore, let's say, the problem space, or explore the needs of you as our client, but also our partner, and then engage in a collaboration, a very close collaboration over time with very short feedback loops. Yeah. So yeah, I remember very well that there was some confusion or even frustration on your side, because you were expecting a different stance or a different level of guidance and support. But I think it was a good starting point for a close collaboration that also was quite successful, right? So over time, when we delivered the first results and produced the learning journey step by step, I think it worked very well, especially this close collaboration and frequent communication and exchange.
I've also an experience, sorry. Also an experience I had to think about, like when we're talking about the initial workshop, was we were starting the collaboration with a new customer. So what you do is you provide all the material, and you sent us over like the slide deck from JTI. It was, I think, like around about 200 slides about like how Agile looks like in your company, and roles description and stuff. And we were sitting the three of us together. And what you basically do is you go through the slide deck and highlight all the questions you're having. We're coming together, all of us having the question, okay, why is that thing important to you guys? Or like, what do you want to achieve with it? And we take that question to our workshop and ask the question in the workshop, made a workshop module out of it. And at some point, one of your colleagues, Katrin, Steve, stands up and says, okay, stop guys. That's not gonna work that way, but let me explain it to you. And Steve gives like a 3-minute speech. And that 3-minute speech included like, okay, after that, it was for us certain, like you have a certain understanding why you want to do it, what it means to you as a company, and what your buy-in is. And we're just like, okay, hold it, Steve. Could you just repeat it, and could we record it? Because I think like that's going to be helpful for us, and it's going to be helpful for your participants. And what ended out of the conversation we had in that workshop is that Steve not only provided the video which went into the corporate learning program, which starts with why is Agile important for us, but we also included like 2 videos of your CEO where Eddie explains like why Agile is important to JTI. And this is also one of the feedbacks that we received from the participants. Like there is management buy-in, and they see why that's important and why this is relevant for you guys. And we like creating these kind of ideas or thriving these kind of ideas, which should be in, or like what parts should be in, or how can we handle certain topics. That was quite interesting and important experience for us.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree. That was a very, very inspiring moment. And it was really like we were saying, hey, we need this. Can you please can we record you doing the same speech again? And then the CEO speech was extremely powerful as well. And this was also the feedback from the pilot cohort, that they really valued this perspective, you know, also the perspective from the CEO, from leadership, and hearing from them or him specifically how important this was for JTI, right? So that was very powerful. And we're now also considering to record another video, right? Or you're considering recording another video of Eddie, the CEO, yeah, again, reflecting on the importance and including another video.
Absolutely.
Maybe.
I think it also makes it very specific for us, of course, because people are those people speaking to our employees are very credible, and it makes it so relevant for them. And yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
Quite good impression that we had was the conversation after, like, I think it was at the end of or in the middle of the pilot cohort, and we were thinking about the rollout process. Okay, how to do the rollout. Initially, we were planning to do this year the pilot cohort and 2 other cohorts, and at some point we were sitting together saying, okay, what is the amount of change we would like to have, and how much change do we should we make to give an experience to the second cohort. So we changed like the schedule of the rollout to give ourselves, like all of us, including all the other projects that we have in scope, the time to use and facilitate the feedback that we received from the pilot cohort. And when we have integrated this into the program, let's start the second group then, but not like just go and rush with the second group just through the program without accepting the feedback that we received by the pilot cohort, which was a quite interesting discussion for me as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think now would be the time to go into the Q&A part of our webinar. Sophia, what do you think? We have lots of questions already, I see. I haven't gone through them. But
there have been a lot of questions coming in here and there, so let's start from something. Here is one question. It goes probably to all of you. How to ensure that after the learning program is initiated, new joiners are engaged and trained as well? How does it work with your system? Referring probably to the corporate learning program.
What does new joiners refer to? Let me check the question itself.
Maybe it means new people joining the team or the company, perhaps.
Okay, I see it here from Simas.
Yes.
So, how you ensure, I guess that's probably for Katrin, you, how you ensure that once the learning program is initiated, new joiners are engaged and trained. So how do we recruit people, or how do we socialize this with the organization? Is this correct, Simas? Do I understand your question correctly? Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, to be very honest, I mean, we are not yet there. We are more at the beginning and reaching everyone. But I think the interest, and that's the good thing in our case, the interest of people also having something maybe even more tangible, because they would normally just start doing Agile also in their teams, but they are also somehow grasping for something which makes it more tangible. So they are really hungry also to do something, or to learn something and to see something. So far the interest was huge, so we didn't need to motivate them in a way. And the good thing about the program as it is now, of course, we will have several waves, and over time, I believe once we have addressed majority of people, it's also the question, how will we deal with then the new joiners? But the good thing for sure is also the self-learning part. You are absolutely independent as a participant, so you can start it at every moment. And for the classroom session, we just need to wait until we have a cohort. We also, I mean, we are a large company, And with people around the world, we always have new joiners. And as long as we can do it in English and also on a remote basis, it's easier actually also to run classroom sessions, because we can just do it as a virtual training, and then it doesn't take that much time to get a group of 15 to 20 people.
Maybe to share the experience from another client beyond JTI, their intention is not to say, okay, we have a large amount of people and we want to train them today, and there should be like 300 or 800 people starting with this corporate learning program next week. But their intention is that we're building up general understanding of Agile and related topics, so that new joiners, as a part of their onboarding process, can use this corporate learning program to see how some things are running in their company. So the corporate learning program as a platform provides the basis for new joiners to understand certain terms which are used in the organization. For example, when they talk about leadership behavior or value streams, HR wants them to have like a joint understanding. So what they do is they provide this corporate learning program as a platform for new joiners to be sure that they are on the same page as everyone else in the company, or to take it as a first part to become on the same page.
We've even considered, or now we're considering to add some of the reflections from the first cohort, the pilot cohort. So if you remember, they were expected to go through an application phase and put things in practice, and then reflect on their experience of putting things in practice in their individual context, and write it up and submit a report to the system. And we were considering to use some of those reflections because they were brilliant. They were really good. And we were fascinated by the level of reflection and, you know, also the successful application of some of those people to use those in the self-learning material for future cohorts. I think that's a very, very interesting idea, yeah, that we will probably work on soon in the next weeks.
Cool. Should we take the next question?
Yes, please.
Great. Here is one from Marika. JTI and Catherine seems to be a creative customer and a creative person, but when the client then is not creative, how do you work then with the guys? And if they don't want to change, how can you support this?
It's an interesting question, and I agree. So I think Catherine specifically, but also the other JTI folks we've been working with, are creative people who are willing to share their ideas and perspectives, but also reflect on our ideas or suggestions and so on. I think, you know, this kind of collaboration is essential if you want to work in an agile way, to really explore needs and explore the context of your client. If they're not willing to share, it's not really going to be very effective or very successful. I can't really think of any clients that were not willing to share, because if they want to engage in that kind of relationship in the first place and want to enable effective learning opportunities to their organization, they really have to understand the context and the challenges or the goals and aspirations as well. So yeah, anyway, it's an interesting question. What would we do? I guess we could also be more in the driver's seat and make recommendations and guide you know, our counterpart more. But I'm not sure it's going to be very successful or highly effective, because if we want to really meet the specific needs of our counterparts, our clients, or the companies we're training in that case, then we have to really understand their situation and facilitate those conversations.
Good. Does anyone else want to add something, Katrin or Lothar? No? Okay, so let's take the next one. Is the entire corporate learning program customized?
Yeah, who would like to answer that one, Lothar?
Yeah, I take that one. Basically, when we talk about the corporate learning program, there is a couple of modules that are already prepared or that we have been already used for other things, like for example, training preparation. And there is, let's call it the library of elements and modules and training modules, which are a couple hundred modules, which we are based this corporate learning program on. And based on this, let's say, joint library which is available, there is the possibility to customize modules. So it may be that there is a client who says, we have seen something or experienced something, and we would like to have this as a fundament and add additional parts on that. But it also occurred that another client said, okay, we would like to have a corporate learning program, which is based on your stuff, but we would like to include other elements which are, let's say, close to Agile and work in the same environment or come together, for example, Management 3.0. But we would like to have you to customize modules on that and integrate this in the entire learning thing. So it's rather not we start everything from the scratch and there is something available, but the final intention is to make it as good as fitting to the customer as possible in this co-creation process.
I once learned the term mass customization, right? And the idea, or in this context, the idea would be that we have lots of material, lots of content, video, but also articles and reading and scenarios and so on available that we can use or repurpose. But the customization is, in some cases, it's really developing something from scratch for the specific client, because we need to talk about, for example, the application of agility in the tobacco industry, right? So this is customization, pure customization. Sometimes the customization will refer to combining elements that are available in a way that makes sense to the customer, right, or the client and the participant that goes through the journey.
Absolutely, and I think you remember, for us it was also important to have, let's say, also to leverage those things which are already there, because we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We are not the only one doing Agile, and definitely not the first one. So what's generally also valid for us, that's easy then also to just use, but make the best out of it and make it relevant for our context, and maybe also put more focus on bridging the theory then into our context to make it really relevant for our people. That's the more customized part, I guess.
Interesting. Can you, Katrin, also open up how you motivate the people at JTI to be participating in these different levels in the corporate learning program?
Well, I said it before. I think so far we had the luxury that we didn't really need to motivate people, but that's maybe also a bit related to our culture. Our employees were very much used to do training, maybe too much used to do training. So they were really also looking for something. They were really hungry to get information, to know more, to learn. So we didn't really need to motivate them until today. That's the great thing in our case. Yeah.
Thanks. Can you also share maybe some feedback that you have got from JTI regarding the corporate learning program? Like, what do people say when they heard about the corporate learning program and that it's going to be available and so on?
The feedback so far was very, very positive. Of course, after the pilot, also constructive in a way how we can improve, but this is also because we specifically asked for it. But overall, it's finally we have something which is also customized, which is relevant for JTI. We can still improve in that area to make it really more tangible with our own examples, I believe. But it was also the way it was structured, and also giving them the context. Okay, that was the reason why we are introducing it, why we want to be Agile. Really, as Lothar mentioned before, there was this inspirational speech from our CEO, also to engage people and to have that all in one, but then also to learn about, okay, that's the generic understanding of Agile, and it's not about Scrum, it's more the mindset, and really to see these principles. So it was just very well perceived, actually. And it was even, we got some additional requests because people heard about it, people chatted about it, and some more people reached out to us and asked if they could already start with the journey as well. So even in our transformation office, people who are not really familiar with, or let's say who are not working in our Agile work stream, they also wanted to do it, and also very senior people, maybe also used to work in a more old-fashioned way, but they were quite impressed. So the feedback was very good.
One feedback that surprised me that many participants from the pilot cohort shared with us was that they thought that the validation part at the end was also very valuable. And my first thought was, really, you appreciate a test? You know, who would appreciate a test at the end? But what they shared was quite interesting, because apparently it helped them again reflect on the meaning and the purpose and the value of all the content that we covered in previous phases, including the application phase where they were supposed to put things in practice, right? And then again reflect on the application in their specific context. And they thought the way that the assessment or the validation part was designed and set up was really valuable for them to again reflect on the importance of certain elements and so on. So that was very surprising, but also very nice feedback, right?
Good. Then here's a question. Now we know that JTI is very big as a company and doing the corporate learning all in all. But what if you're a little bit smaller company, like less than 1,000 people? Is the corporate learning program still relevant? I think this is a question maybe to our coaches.
Yeah. Shall I take this one up? Yeah. I guess it is also relevant for smaller companies. But so of course, I mean, the exact number of participants doesn't really matter, right? You could do the same thing, so a similar delivery of learning, or providing similar opportunities to learn to a small amount of people easily. But question is, would that make sense? Wouldn't you actually want to engage in more face-to-face learning opportunities and consider then actually running face-to-face workshops or trainings, or having a person, an experienced person, a coach and trainer you can ask in person? I think if we're looking at smaller amounts of people, those face-to-face situations might be more valuable. Here we're looking at ways to provide learning for many people, so large-scale learning, right? And ways to reduce contact time. But especially self-learning and video-based learning or online self-learning will never replace one-on-one interaction, right? And conversations with a real person. And that's also something we need to be aware of. So if we can afford spending time with an experienced coach or trainer, we should probably go for that option.
There was actually also a question about what the difference is between an Agile coach and a trainer. Maybe you can add that to your comment here when you said that you would like to talk to the experienced ones.
Yeah, Lothar?
It was the question just appeared at the beginning. So the question that we're having is normally, like in the training, it's more about like, okay, I would like to understand the basic concept, and maybe you have the possibility to interact in a simulation or a simulated space. But when it comes to coaching, the question is, how can you take this information or that thing that you just learned and apply it to your certain context in your company or in your environment? So the question that we're facing quite often is that in training you say, okay, well, sorry, as the trainer, that's not part of my job in here. Go to your coach, or coaching is something we do day after tomorrow, like when the training finished. The challenge that we had in the corporate learning program, and there were basically two challenges. The one thing is that the training should go together with the application, because Katrin clarified quite fast that you understand, I think, like learning as a thing that includes the training and the application all together. And the second challenge that we received is how to bring everything into validation. Like we would like to validate also how people applied it. So when it comes to the question, like what is the difference? I would say like the one is like in a closed environment, and the second question is how can we take this and bring it into our certain application? How can we make this transfer? Which is also a question that we had when we were designing the Agile program.
So you might remember the Bloom's taxonomy, this pyramid with the 2 layers at the bottom, which are blue, which are about understanding things in principle, understanding the theory. And then those layers above that are green are application, right? So applying things in practice. And I guess we can distinguish using this terminology, training and coaching, or teaching and coaching. Because those higher levels of learning include other elements like reflection and exchanging, and obviously, putting things into an individual context, right? And not just theoretically understanding a concept. Yeah, and we ended up designing the learning journey for level 1 in a way that the first phase, self-learning, focuses on understanding, and then the application obviously focuses on application.
Thanks. Let's take one more question because we are running out of time a little bit, but let's take the last question. So Peter said that he dealt with a problem where the participants in the learning program are trying to apply what they learned into a context that might not be ready or willing to embrace the new ways of working. How do you handle this?
Yeah, interesting question. So
Can I jump in on that?
Yeah, sure.
We had a quite fun situation when we were creating the program. I think it was together with you, Katrin, where we said, okay, guys, finally, what we don't want to achieve is that there are 10,000 people running around the large office and everyone's ramping up their own Kanban board or starting doing retrospectives and stuff like that. How to handle that? I think like the answer that we found on that is if we look on the learning journey, like on the first level of the learning journey, where we talk about like this large scale amount of people, there is a defined set of assignments, and there are 7 things that you can try. And per design, you must do one of the 7. If you want to, like, feel free to do a second or a third one as well. But this is like a certain space that is provided and that you can do without everyone running around and ramping up their own Kanban board. The second thing is at JTI, what we understood is every functional area has their an own Agile coach, which is responsible. And there is a connection between the Agile coaches and us, so they know like what the assignments are. When we're going into further levels of level 2, level 3, where we expect people to ramp up a Kanban board or something like that, there is an integration between there is the learning program, or even stronger integration, like there is the learning program. The Agile coach in the functional area knows, okay, there is a participant who comes back with any kind of assignment, which might be like take 1 out of 5 or take 3 out of 5. And they have to be like there is any kind of internal support. That's like my thoughts on that. Maybe you guys want to say something.
I'd just like to highlight that we designed the set of 7 assignments in a way that they were quite diverse, right? And they were addressing different elements of the self-learning phase that we had covered before. So some were about reflecting on the Agile values and translating them into the daily work of a participant. Others were applying Agile practices, like running retrospectives, so that there was a large range of possibilities, what people could do to put things in practice.
And absolutely, and I think especially these reflections, even if it was not so successful because the team was not willing to go together and also to adapt. But I think these reflections are also part of the learning at the end. And with the help of the coaches, as Lothar mentioned, because we do have also Agile coaches working with the teams, they can also share their reflections and maybe then also take some more actions how to deal with the team on the field, and in that way. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that was it, what we can support you guys with now, because it's now 1 sharp. Unfortunately, some questions were unanswered, but let's see if we can somehow try to answer them in the email for you, coming out as soon as possible. I want to thank you guys for the presentation. Thanks, Katrin, for being here, taking time. Thanks, Simon and Lothar as well. There's a lot of webinars coming up still before Christmas, so have a look also at the upcoming webinars if you're interested in. Regarding the corporate learning program, if you're interested in learning more or having a call or whatever, get in touch with us. We will send you the details in the email, and also from the agile42.com pages, you can contact us freely. So we are happy to help with any questions or having any talks if you want to hear more. Hope you all stay healthy, have a nice weekend, stay safe, and see you next time. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Fia. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. I think people are dropping out.
We stay?
Stop the recording.